Hey yo, what is up? Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. End of the year review video. Absolutely nobody asked me to do this, but if there was a time to do a year-end review, now is a great time to do it. Leave it all behind in 2022 as we look forward to 2023. I want to tell you what my thoughts are on the current state of World of Tanks, and without sounding too negative and hitting too hard on wargaming, but if there's a great time to do it, now would be it. It might come off as a little bit negative to you guys, so if this is not your kind of video, you can go ahead and skip it. But let's talk about the state of World of Tanks. Now, in my opinion, whatever the development or the development teams have been doing for the last 3 or 4 years, it has clearly been not working, and that is because the player base is shrinking. There are less people than ever playing World of Tanks. More than ever, less people are playing this game than there ever was. There was a huge surge during the lockdown of 2020 and 2021. But ever since the world has been opening up again, you can see the numbers have just been falling. Whether it's World of Tanks 1.0 or Equipment 2.0 or field modifications or combat directives or blueprints or personal reserves to speed up your grind, bond equipment or bounty equipment dangled as candy to, so you play more to grind them out for free or whatever. Female crews, like they used to be attainable only in personal missions. Now you can literally log in for a free G.I. Joe commander with 3 skills, or if you just decorate your Christmas tree and you get like a couple of free BIA crews there. And now all these new quote-unquote innovative products rolled out one after the another did not create enough new players to keep the player base growing. Some people argue these new products actually make the cost of entry for new players even higher. It would seem all these new things added to the game were designed to fast track the new players up the tech tree and get them properly invested into the game and hooked into the ecosystem. Well, that was the ideal anyway. But instead of the player base growing, the opposite has happened. And I think 2 things that happened when wargaming devs decided to roll out these quote-unquote fast-track tools to attract more players. 1, I feel like it devalued the product, and 2, it made the game more complicated than it needed to be. Now, I will elaborate further on these 2 problems that is handicapping the growth of this game. Now, you guys are familiar with the scarcity effect that dev tools, the tool that devs use to create FOMO or fear of missing out. This is what drives the perceived value up, because a commodity is rare and difficult to obtain. People think it's more valuable than it really is, but playing the scarcity game is kind of like a double-edged sword for developers. Eventually people are going to catch on to your strategy. They will realize that you are making the same moves over and over again. They will see the same problems developing. Then eventually, the scarce something that was difficult to get becomes easy to get, and then it's a pattern that is, people can read the pattern. For example, when the first summer digital camo first appeared, it was so highly valued because you knew only hardcore winning clan wars players got them. You had to be top percentile to earn them. It became a valuable item that you were proud to own and use, to show off your status as a hardcore clan wars winner. But today it's a reward camo that only requires participation to earn. So what happens in 2022 is I have over 20 different types of 2D styles and all kinds of camouflage designs that I have never even used once. What was in 2015 highly prized in 2022 is a dime a dozen. The perception is the devs have devalued the product so much that it's compounded itself with interest, and this devalued perception is now in fact the reality. Not a lot of people care too much about events that are giving out camo or free crew or some equipment or whatever. Nobody really cares about them anymore because it seems devalued in the eyes of the players. Now, whether or not it's true, it does not matter any longer because it's a fact that the current player base is in steady decline, and none of its recently added game mechanics and products manage to reverse this trend. Now, part 2 of the problem is devs making the game more and more complicated than it needs to be. In the early days of the game, players were drawn to the nuances and the micro complexities of the game. You needed a combination of motor skills and applied knowledge to excel in this first person shooter. This is not just a game about quick reflexes. This was a thinking man's PUBG. You needed to have some idea about penetration values, angles, armor thickness, weak points, view range mechanics. This is not just a game about twitch reflexes. This was a thinking man's PUBG. You need to know how camo works, how equipment that can help the characteristics with your tank, crew skills that boost your performance, positions on maps for different tanks. It was a lot of information to absorb and apply to enjoy the game thoroughly. But what's different then was the knowledge gap between the new player and a regular player wasn't too wide. A new player could quickly absorb the game into the, quickly be absorbed into the ecosystem, and their basic knowledge was sufficient to carry them through the orientation phase of the game. You know what I'm talking about? You could learn as you go, and the gap between a new player and an old player wasn't too wide. It was, you could still easily get by as a new player. Today, the user experience is designed to boost your progress 10 times faster, where you can literally grind up a tier 10 within a week of playing this game. The devs thought this was a good idea, and this would keep players grinding more tier 10 tanks than ever before. But I think the opposite has happened, and this has damaged the longevity prospects of the game. More players are skipping the lower tiers entirely, and I think there's evidence that supports this theory. You can see that there are a lot of low tier bots right now that Wargaming have put in as part of the ecosystem. There's so little players playing tier 3s and tier 5s. They've introduced bots so that you can have some people participating. Tank mechanics, which reveal tank mechanics with travel modes, double shots, Italian auto loaders or auto reloaders with bonus reload times, and now mechanics with rocket boosters and flamethrowers. This is on top of the crew skill mechanics that you need to understand. Example, situational awareness perk that sometimes are on the radio man, and on certain premium tanks it's on the commander skill, making it a pain in the ass because you have to retrain the crew, and then there's also the equipment management and how they work. Example, I bet not many players know that improved ventilation or vents only boosts your major qualifications and a couple of crew skills like BIA, camo, firefighting, and repairs. Your major skills and your major qualifications. I bet not many players knew that vents do not boost your other crew skills like snapshot or smooth ride, etc. I'm going off on a tangent here for a PSA. Vents are best for crews with a lot of skills. If you only have 2 skill crew, it's better to just run equipment that will directly improve the performance of your tank. Example, a turbo or whatever, instead of putting on vents for your crew skills. Now back to the story. In 2022, you now have improved equipment that you have to invest time and money to obtain, and then there's the new experimental equipment that's available if you play with pay for with time and money. This new experimental equipment is facing severe pushback right now from the community because in essence it's 2 equipment slots or 2 equipment rolled into 1 slot. Needless to say, this will mean a significant advantage to players who have have this equipment at their disposal. Players hate it as much as they hate Crew 2.0, but we'll see where this development goes. As far as I know, the train has already left the station, and they're going to roll out this whether we like it or not. In fact, I already see it added into the game files, in the updated game files. I know this is true because experimental equipment was not added to Sandbox for it to be tested by the player base, nor were community contributors asked to test this feature and provide feedback. I suspect that they already knew there was going to be negative feedback, but they're just gonna go ahead with it because they didn't even bother to ask us for our opinion. Now, on top of equipment knowledge, you also need to understand how camo values work, the difference between camo on light tanks and on other tanks, view range mechanics, render distances, double bush mechanics, spotting distances and what they mean, optics versus binocs mechanics, regular tank hulls versus V-shape hulls, sloped armor versus spaced armor, how heat shells sometimes don't do any damage when you hit the tracks. Now I know you're getting lost with a lot of the things I want to say here, but I'm describing how unnecessarily complicated the game is becoming. I haven't even begun to talk about the different game modes and different rules and mechanics surrounding each game mode. Now, I've played this game for 10 years and I still don't know everything or remember everything. Every time there's a new event or a game mode, the article that accompanies it in the website makes me lose more brain cells than I care to commit to. I stopped reading the articles like 4 years ago. When I want information or something specific, I go ask a community contributor through my DMs. I don't got half an hour to read through something that I will probably have to research again later. So I'm just gonna end up asking questions anyway, so I might as well just go straight to someone who has the knowledge and can explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. I suspect these articles are written in Russian and then later translated for the rest of the world. Now, you remember in the good old days, having trained crew skills, and running premium equipment meant making your tank perform slightly better than stock. This was a huge advantage, especially in 2015, 2016. You got 5 crew skills, and then you ran some equipment. It made your tank a little bit better. It made your experience playing the tank a little bit more fun. Crews were a little bit more skilled. Fast forward to 2020, the large swaths of World of Tanks players already have built up crews, and all their tanks are having already that 6 skill crew, 9 skill crew. And having a 9 skill crew was no longer a big deal. In order to have that little bit of advantage, you needed to invest more time and more resources into a new mechanic introduced into the game, Equipment 2.0. In 2015, we used to spend our time grinding credits and crew XP to improve the performance of our tanks. But in 2020, it feels like we're spending more time and energy getting more resources and more crew skills and more combat XP, not to make our tank better, but to make our tank less shit. Think about it. On top of trying to earn credits and crew /combat XP, and now we need to earn bond and bounty equipment to maximize our tank's potential. And if you think about it, actually, it feels like we're doing all that not to make our tanks better, but to make them less shit. Why is this so? The answer is simple. It is because devs have priced in, they have factored in Equipment 2.0, field modifications, 6 skill crews when they design any new tanks. Any new tanks coming out post Equipment 2.0, post World of Tanks 1.0, and field modifications and 6 skill crews or whatever, they have already factored in all these things into all the new tanks that they want to release. They cannot release a tank that is pretty good stock, because imagine you piling on all that crew skill Equipment 2.0 and now your new experimental equipment. It would make those tanks completely broken. So when they design new tanks nowadays, they've got to make it slightly shit. And this is how I feel the new tanks are. You are making all your tanks less shit. For example, the new BZ-176, a pretty powerful tank in my opinion, but stock it is shit. You put equipment and crew skills on it just to make it playable, and then it becomes really overpowered. And I'm not sure, man, but World of Tanks nowadays is like a whole different animal. But to wrap up 2022, I'm gonna be honest and say I think World of Tanks is in decline, albeit a little bit slower, and in part due to the COVID pandemic kind of helped it a bit in 2020, 2021. It kind of slowed down the decline because a lot of people stayed indoors, a lot of people stayed home, a lot of people worked from the home, and their World of Tanks managed to sustain itself for a little bit. But for 2023, time will tell if they will actually release the flamethrower tanks into the general population outside of the Russian server. But it could mean opening the floodgates to all manner of new game mechanics that could be added into the random queue in the future. All the game mechanics that you see they've developed in Frontlines, for example, they're not just going to throw it down the drain and just keep it within Frontlines. They're going to make use of the assets that they've developed over the years, which I'm talking about: minefields, air scouts, this flame mechanics that they're adding to the Russian server, airstrikes, all the stuff is on the table, and could be a game changer for World of Tanks. You know, expect experimental equipment to cause a shitstorm. And also you've seen a little bit of development in the crew 2.0. They've released a little video where it looks like there's going to be some kind of changes in the crew skills. They're going to be adding more skills. Could be kind of game breaking, could not be, we don't know. And then there's also some plans to rebalance the game. They have to do it. They have to rebalance a whole bunch of other tanks if they're going to make this game viable in the future, because what they're doing right now is making a lot of changes into the game, and time will tell whether it's going to be good or it's going to be bad. But if history is any kind of a lesson, you can clearly see whatever they've been doing, whatever kind of ideas that they've had in the past 3-4 years has not helped the game grow. Equipment 2.0, experimental equipment, whatever they've added into the game in the last 3-4 years, it is clearly not working. I hope all the best for them. I hope they are heading in the right direction. If they think they are making a mistake right now, it's not too late to steer the boat into the right direction, but we do not know what's on their mind and what they have in the back burners. This is a billion-dollar company. They should have their shit together, but we'll see what's going on. Thanks for watching and have a happy new year, and I'll see you in 2023. Bye bye.